All right, so glad you guys are here, watching online. Thumbs up. I read a study this past week that said in America that it's close to 60% of people in America with their jobs feel like the demands of their job cause an extreme amount of stress and burnout. Really burned out as a result of their job. Anyone like that? Your job's stressful? Anyone feel stressed from their job? Okay, 4 of you work. Okay, everyone's like, I don't know. Anyone feel burned out by their job? Okay, a few. Okay, good. Well, I got to thinking, because my brain, I'm such a weirdo anyways, I got to thinking, what would be the worst jobs in the world? So I want to just give you real quick today some jobs that I think my job can get tough sometimes. Sometimes it gets a little heavy. Not lying, just a few weeks ago, I was on the phone late and people calling, stuff's going on, and my wife was just like, I don't know if this is worth it, honestly. Not like you're making a ton of money. Like she really was, I was like, I couldn't tell what side she was on. But here's what I was thinking, worse than my job at least. First one would be this. A magician's assistant, right? But there's something worse than being a magician's assistant. That's when you're actually just some redneck cowboy's assistant, right? I've never really done this before, Alicia, but I think it'll work. Let's just start. So that's not good. Second one for me, that's a real job. I know it looks like an old picture, but look how happy those men are. Isn't that weird? Just a deodorant tester. And then last one, I won't go long, no one cares. That job looks kind of tough. And the reason I want to end with this one more than anything is because I thought, if we're honest this morning, maybe it's your job, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's the situation, but a lot of us can feel like that's what life is doing to us, right? I mean, it just feels like you just keep taking shots and life just kind of keeps dumping on you and you think you're kind of seeing some light, and then next thing you know, something else just hits and you're like, man, when do the shots just quit happening? And I think for some of you this morning, if you're honest, you're like, I'm stressed. Some of you are burnt out. So before we get started, we're going to talk about a guy in the Bible named Elijah. But before we do that, I want to give you just kind of a quick difference between stress and burnout. So what are those? Stress is short-lived generally and related to project events. So what that means is, hey, wedding coming up, I'm stressed. You should be, right? Hey, I've got a huge presentation at work and it's really a big deal. I've got a final coming up or finals coming up this week and I'm just stressed. Okay, yeah, be stressed. That's the way life works, right? We all have kind of these one-off events and these moments and these seasons. For me, certain seasons of life are way more stressful than others. Yeah, that's how life works. But burnout is different. Burnout is this chronic stress that feels like it's just not ending. So how do you tell you're burnout? Because you start saying stuff like it's not going to get better. I can't get my head above water ever. And it's just like constantly feels like there's more and more and more. And what happens is mentally we just get toasted. And then the next thing you know, we kind of spiral. So what I want to do this morning before we talk about this story in 1 Kings 19, like I said, the guy named Elijah. Before I do that, here's what I'm going to do. Can I tell you guys a story that's an absolute lie? Anybody? Anybody good for that? I at least preface it's a complete lie. Okay, man. So I coached football for years. This year, just, kids are changing, wife's changing jobs. So for me, I was just like, I want to do something that's not that stressful. I don't want to be just in it, super in it. So I ended up taking a volunteer job at a little junior high. It's awesome. Showed up a couple days a week. Loved it. So much fun. But we had a kid on our team who broke his arm in practice. Okay, and he broke his arm, and he gets up, and we're like, wait, are you lying or telling the truth now? Now I'm confused, okay? So he gets up, breaks his arm. If you ever seen someone break their arm in football, it makes like a Z. Anyone ever watch that? Vicious. Oh, it's so bad, right? And I'm trying to talk to him and get up, and coaches are around him, and he holds up his arm, and he's starting to freak out. I'm like, don't freak out. We're okay. I said, because here's what we're going to do. Now, see, his mom and dad are like great Christian people, solid people, some of the best people on earth. So I looked right at him and I said, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to go to a doctor. We're going to pray. We're going to pray right now, and that bone's just going to get straight right in front of you. Now, some of you are like, now are you telling the truth? What's going on here? But here's why I'm telling you that. All of us in here are like, no, you don't do. If one of you falls, walks out the door, gets hit by a car, whatever, and you break a bone, you go to the doctor. Good or bad, I don't care. I'm just saying that's what you do, right? But here's the reason I'm telling you that. It amazes me. A junior high kid can break his arm. They put it in a cast. He goes walking into school. All the pretty cheerleaders are signing it. Everybody's happy. Any part of your body you mess up, you're like, I probably need to go to a professional or someone who knows more about this than I do, someone who went to school for it. But for some reason, there's the stigma. If it's with your brain, it's like, don't get help anywhere. Is that not weird to anybody else? I've always wondered that. Like, I wonder why that's different than everything else. If I walk in and say, hey, John, I broke both of my fingers, she's not like, well, just fix it, right? Sometimes you need help. And I think that's what's crazy for us. Why do we have this stigma? So to set up this story, now that I've said my spiel, we'll get into this story. I want to set up, we're going to see a guy who's just roasted. He's stressed, he's burnt out, he's ready just to call it quits. Well, what happened? Here's the backstory, so just so you can feel this, okay? This is Elijah. He's a prophet from God. The king's name is Ahab. Now there's a couple good kings that God kind of had in place. They did some good stuff. Ahab comes along. He's wicked. He's terrible. His wife Jezebel, terrible people. But let me just give you the rundown of what's happened up before we read 1 Kings 19. Ahab's a wicked king. Elijah keeps warning him. He's warning, like, hey, God even said he's going to cause no rain for years. Ahab's like, oh, whatever, it ain't going to happen. Well, it does. It quits raining. So that's a big deal. Well, then a little bit after it doesn't rain, there's this big showdown. And this is very interesting to me. There's 850 prophets. So like 400 from Baal, that was a god that they served. And then there's another like 400 random prophets. But this is like old school Western, right? They come up with this idea where they're like, Elijah says, okay, if there's a debate on who's God's who, then we're going to do something. It's weird, I know, but they did it back then. He said, I want all of your prophets. Ahab, take everybody that believes like this, bring them down. We're going to meet on the mountain, Mount Carmel, and we'll have a showdown, straight showdown. And we will find out, we will solve this issue. Whose God is real today? Well, he's like, they get there, and it's literally Elijah. He's here on this side by himself. Think about that. The king, 850 priests, prophets, religious, like gurus, and he's like, you guys go first. Real simple challenge. We just want God to call down fire, like on an offering. So start offering. And all we're asking God to do is to cause fire on the offering. So they start they're doing their offering. It says they start cutting themselves. Well, Elijah was a little bit of a D-bag. That's a dirt bag, by the way. He's a little bit of a dirt bag. So he's literally like looking at them and he's taunting them. He's like, wait, don't you think, like, what's wrong with your God? Is your God asleep? Is he busy? Did he not get the phone call? We're meeting today? Like, he's having a good time with it. Then he gets really like junior high. She's like, maybe your God is using the bathroom. And he's literally throwing slams at this guy, and he's by himself. It's him versus almost 1,000 people. Nothing happens. Well, then he walks out like a rock star, and he's like, all right, wait, before we do this, I got one more like kind of party trick here. He's like, this offering that I'm going to ask God to bring fire down, get it wet. There hasn't been rain forever. I don't care. Find as much water as we can. So they drench all the wood. And he's like, here we go, right? Well, when this happens, all these people watching are like, wait a minute, you mean all these people have been leading us falsely for years? So the people turn on all of these prophets and kill every one of them. So this was like a big moment in Elijah's life. Well, when it happens, Ahab goes home and he's mad, and Elijah did this. And Ahab's wife, Jezebel, says, you go back and tell him by tomorrow morning, God is my witness, he will be dead. So the word gets back to Elijah, his wife is going to kill you. That's the backstory. Now I want to take off in 1 Kings 19 just so you feel it. It says this, it says, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush. A broom bush is basically like a bush. It's almost like a tiny small tree, has white flowers. You can get under it for shade. So he's under this tiny tree. He said he sat down under and prayed that he might die. Listen to his prayer. Some of you are maybe here right now. Some of you are watching online. Like, you really are stressed, burnout. He said, I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. Now, I know all of us in this room are wired different. I'm wired different than you guys. But one of the things I find in my life is a lot of mistakes. When I start getting super stressed, super burnt out, as I looked at this story, I was like, wait a minute, I do this. I do all of these things. It was so profound to me. So I want to share with you some common mistakes I think we can make that lead to burnout from this story. Okay, so I want to help you out with this. So what are some of the common mistakes that we make? The first one is this: we run ourselves into the ground. We run ourselves into the ground. Look what it says in verse 3. First thing it says, Elijah was afraid and he ran for his life. I wish I had a map. I would show you. When Elijah got news from Ahab's wife, it's at the top here of Israel, of the nation, and he ran all the way down to the bottom corner. 100 miles. No cars, no planes. That dude ran 100 miles. This story should say in verse 3, and then 4 weeks later, 2 months later. I don't know how long it took him. So here's my question to you. Some of you here, like there's seasons of our lives where we got to kind of sprint. We all know this. But can I ask you a question? You guys watching online, can I ask you a question? Are you running every day for weeks, months? Some of you are still sprinting years. And here's the thing. Elijah's like, God, I'm just tired. And God's like, yeah, you ran 100 miles. Some of you in this room are like, God, I'm tired. God, I'm tired. And he's like, Trent, because you haven't quit running. You're literally running yourself into the ground. My son was here in the morning, the 9:30, and then he left to go back to Georgetown. He's at Georgetown College. My wife and I were at one of the games a few weeks ago, and we're driving home, so it's maybe 4 or 5 o'clock on a Saturday, and I'm driving, and I get in the car, and it's not crazy traffic, but there's pretty good traffic. And in my mind, I'm just like, it is so on, because I know from Georgetown to at least like, I don't know, about an hour, I've got to really get on it and be strategic, and I'm moving, I'm bobbing, I'm weaving. I'm just all over the place. I'm about to kill us. It's awful. I'm running in front of trucks because I know it's getting ready to go into a 2-lane. Well, I'm going crazy. I feel like a NASCAR driver. I'm doing so good. I'm going 90 at times. And as I'm moving in and out and all that, my wife is not saying a word. Every now and then she's kind of grabbing the dashboard because she thinks she's going to die. She's calm. You know what she said to me? About 10 minutes in, I'm feeling good. I'm thinking she's going to look at me and be like, that's why I married you, baby. You will get us home 8 minutes earlier than we should be. You know what she said? She said, is it exhausting living in your brain? She said that. She's like, it never stops. She's like, I'm telling you, it never, you are constantly scheming. Like, hey, what's your diet today? Well, I changed it. Why? Because I read 3 articles today. It's like, oh my God, do you ever stop? We'll be sitting on the couch sometimes, and this is kind of, she has to treat me like a little dog, by the way, okay? Like literally a puppy. She's like, what are you doing? Just looking up something. What? Some latest neuroscience about, she's like, don't even, just stop. Just stop. Sometimes I've been in my room and I sneak. You know, some husbands cheat, they sneak and they're texting girls. I sneak reading articles, right? Weird articles about like random science something. And she's like, what are you doing? Nothing. Are you reading art? I remember one time she said, what are you honestly reading? I was like, well, it's a book on leadership. She was like, you're not even the man I married. I'm embarrassed. You're a dork, right? She's just like, losing it. I'm weird. I get that. But here's my point. Some of you, exactly the same. It's like not only physically, mentally, man, we just keep running, and you never stop. And then you're like, I don't know why, I'm just mentally exhausted. And anyone around's like, I can tell you why. You don't stop. That's not good. It's not healthy. He ran for his life. We run ourselves into the ground. Second one, just 3 things. We try to do it all on our own. Look at the second part of this verse. This is pretty profound. It says, when he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there. Elijah, why would you leave your servant there? Because this is something I got to do on my own. You see, I bet if we were walking beside him and watching a movie and you could just kind of chime in like, Elijah, what are you doing? He won't understand. No one understands what I'm going through. That's why I can't even share it with people. Why? Because no one gets me. No one gets my stress, my strain, my burnout. It's different than all of yours. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push people away. I'm going to keep pushing people away. He left his servant. I need to be by myself. What do we do when we struggle? We push even the people that care the most about us. My wife made this comment this week. It was so good. She said, I wonder why in like heated moments we mistreat or push the people we care the most about away. As simple as that is, it's so true. right? It is. Last week Sunday, I was talking about trauma, and one of the steps that this guy came up with, long story short, he said, is you need a group of people who know and love you unconditionally. Well, Travis Wagner was sitting in the 11 last week, and when I was walking out, he said, dude, when you put that up there, those 3 steps, he said, I looked at my wife and said, that boy ain't done step 3 a day of his life. And I was a little bit like, what? I'm in like 32 small groups or something. But it hit me, what's he saying? Oh, you can be in a lot of groups, man. I'm just telling you, when things go down, what do? You push everybody away. You don't get it. That's why I'm going to do it by myself. We run ourselves into the ground. We try to do it all on our own. This is what leads to stress and burnout. And then the last one, we dwell on the negative. We dwell. See, this is how I can tell. I'm probably naturally a somewhat positive. Everyone's wired different, but I've noticed most people you can let an event happen, and most people just naturally will kind of try to think through the positive. Other people, just even born that way, I think, just naturally kind of go negative. I'm probably on the positive side. But you know how I know when I'm really getting stressed and burnt out? I become really negative. So in the last couple of weeks, let me tell you just, since I can't afford a therapist, you guys will have to do. So let me give you my issues, okay? Just me. I know men in here are like, who cares, dude? My job's way worse than yours. It is. Let me tell you what's going on. So we had all these Thanksgiving baskets, and Cassie, Alicia, we had Kate, we had so many people helping, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of like, man, we got to figure out the logistics. How's this going to work? And right while that was not even ended, we opened up Santa's Workshop, as Aaron talked about, and we saw literally like 300 kids signed up. I bet you in less than 24, it blew up. It's nuts. It's great. But they all are kind of giving me a hard time because not only that, there's some personal stuff going on. There's some people in this church right now that if I could bring them up and just set them in 4 chairs and say, just tell your story, tell your story, tell your story. We all of us would be in tears right now. We'd be devastated because it's such horrible stuff people are going through right now. So I'm texting, I'm trying to, get in the middle of that. We got marriages that are struggling. And then add on to that, we got some other issues for me just that I've got to deal with. So it's heavy, right? So I'm getting all this stuff, so I'm getting kind of stressed. So the running joke here is Alicia, our cross-kids director, she said, how about I just take Santa's Workshop this year? What's she saying? Because I can already tell you're going to be a bear to deal with. I got it, I'm good. What do? I'll keep running myself on the ground, push people away. But I'm on the computer back there just this week. And I pull up the list, this Excel sheet, 300 names. And I look at the first one, and she's sitting behind me because she's waiting to ask me a question. And I go, and she says, she's like, let me just take it. We'll take it. Because she's like, I don't want you to be a Grinch all Christmas. And I told her, I said, I'm not. Actually, I know you think I'm upset. I'm really not. Because the very first person who signed up, they had this boy's name, and then they had details about this kid. They shared a little bit about their kid, and it was heartbreaking. And in that moment, it hit me. I was like, are you going to be that person? Are you going to become that person that can only see the bad in everything? I don't want to be that guy. I know none of you want to be that person. Like there's so much good around us, but we can just get hyper-focused on the negative. And I looked at her and said, no. This is a moment for me to step back and be like, man, we get to help these people. I don't got to. I know it's bad grammar, but I don't got to do this for God. We get to. And that was awesome. Why? Because I can tell for you, probably like me, when you start spiraling, you're going to start looking at negative, and you're going to pick at stuff. You're going to yell at your kids when you don't need to. You're going to fight with your spouse. Why? Because we dwell on the negative. Look what he does. He says, verse 4, take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Wait, time out, Elijah. Who's comparing you to your ancestors? Me. Okay, well, God's not. I don't get why you're adding the added stress here, but okay. Some of you here, maybe you are burning yourself out because you're like, I just have to be better than my brother or my sister. Well, who's comparing you? Mom used to. They're not now. So why are we carrying this weight? All at once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then he lay down. And then lay down again. Don't let your mind bully your body. You know that? Don't let your mind. What happens for us as humans is our mind can start bullying our body. So I know we've already made fun of me, so let's just keep the joke rolling here. But I, about 2 or 3 years ago, got into reading like what they called the experts of like different mental health and stuff. And I was just into like, what are they saying? What should you do? But here's the thing I found out, and this is crazy. This blew my mind. I probably read 3 or 4 books over a period of time. And every one of these books, here's what they said. If you really want to get your mind right, here's what you got to start with. You've got to eat better. You've got to sleep better. And you've got to exercise. Wait a minute. I'm not reading a book to get healthy. I'm reading because my mind, I feel like I'm stressed and I'm having anxiety and all this. No. You got to start with your fundamentals. You got to take care of what's important. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is maybe to rest or eat or simply exercise. What'd the angel say? He's like, look, dude, you've already ran 100 miles. You got your exercise in, but here's what I need you to do. I want you to eat and I want you to rest. It say he literally fell asleep. He wakes back up. You know what the angel says? Eat, rest. Why? Because God realizes he designed us. He knows how this whole thing works. That's how it works for us. You're like, you know what, Trent? I'm just struggling. I'm having anxiety. I'm feeling the stress. Are you eating okay? Oh, no, I eat terrible. Probably need to eat better. That has nothing to do with my brain. It does. No, Trent, you understand? I can feel it kind of rising up in me. Are you sleeping okay? Oh, I'm not sleeping at all. They're connected. Trent, you know what I said at my job, I said on the computer, 14 hours a day, I feel terrible. Yes, because you have to move. That's even what the angel suggested. And this is the best part. We're going to close with this. Verse 11 of 19. Elijah's like, God, I need something big. I'm hurting big. I'm struggling big. Could you please do something big? This is so good. The Lord said, I'm going to hook you up. He says, go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, because the Lord is about to pass by. And in that moment, Elijah's like, dude, I'm hurting, I'm struggling. Man, God, do something big. Look what God does. It says, then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord wasn't in the wind. Then, right after that, it says, after the wind, there was an earthquake. But the Lord's not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire. Earth, wind, and fire. It's old people, never mind, who cares? Thank you to we said our age there, didn't we? Anyway, young kids like, okay, whatever. So after earth came a fire, but the Lord's not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper, and he was in the whisper. Now, let me give you some good news today. Okay, this is awesome news. This is why this is worth the price of admission, even though you didn't pay to get in, for right now. If I want to call you out, then I shout. But if I want to call you in, then I whisper. Think about what God did. God, through his angel, through himself, never says, Elijah, what do you do? And some of you, maybe you're burnt out and stressed. You're like, I didn't even talk to God because God would be like, oh my, what an idiot. He does it. Elijah, don't you remember all the stuff? He didn't do any of that. He's like, listen to me. Take care of yourself. Eat. Rest, but I want you to hear my voice. He calls him in to himself. That's so profound. Why is God's voice quiet sometimes? Maybe because he's closer to you than you realize. In your darkest, loneliest moments, you might have to calm down for a second and hear he's actually whispering to you because he's like, I'm right with you. I've always been with you. I've never left you. That's good news. But here's kind of the practical point. If you were tired, okay, this is a quiz real quick. Online, you can type in the answer. This is really, it's not a trick question. If you were tired and then we're like, oh, we're all sitting around, we got to figure a solution. You're tired, okay? You're tired. What do you need to do? If you're tired, you need to rest, right? It's not hard. Okay, if you're hungry, you need to eat. See, they both have very simple answers. But here's the problem I think Elijah was learning from God when he whispered. He's like, you're tired and you're hungry, but that's not really it. That's not all of it. You're not just tired and hungry. You're empty. You see, if you're tired, take a nap. If you're hungry, go eat a meal. But if you're empty, then you have to be refilled. How? God's like, let me whisper, because I'm the one that has to fill you. If you're empty, you have to be filled, and God's the only one who can do that. So as we close, I've got amazing news today. Okay, I know most of you are like, dude, I wasn't even following you today. You're all over the place. Fair enough. But I'm going to share something that Jesus said. It's one of my favorite verses. And I think just what Jesus says here, if nothing else, you're going to walk out of here, I pray, a little lighter, with a bigger smile, maybe realizing there's hope in even your darkest moments, because that's how God works. But this is awesome. This is what Jesus said. Jesus said, are you tired? Are you worn out? Are you burned out on religion? Are you tired of the treadmill? Do more, be more, get better, stay better. Look what he says. He's like, why don't you get away with me? You'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Okay, Jesus, well, how do we do that? Walk with me. Work with me. Watch how I do it. It's one of my favorite verses. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And look what he closes with. He says, I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. That's good news. Is that not good news? For some of you right now are just like, I've been running, Trent, right? Some of you are like, I'm doing it all on my own. My family won't help me with anything with Thanksgiving. They won't. If you're married, they won't. I'm just telling you. Okay, you're just stuck with that. It's like, and I've been getting negative, and I'm mad at everybody. And Jesus is like, no, I want you to walk with me, and I'm not going to put more on you. I want you to learn to walk, literally learn to live freely and lightly. So we have awesome stuff that happens around here all the time. So proud of you guys for so many of you, what you do. But one of the things that just started recently was there's a women's recovery group, and they have what we call the table. We have a table in a couple of different places. The table is just us saying, why don't we try to do it like Jesus? Let's go eat. We'll eat with a group of people. We'll hang out. We'll talk to them. We'll tell a little Jesus story. What I mean by that is just like a simple thing about Jesus' life. People can stay. They can leave. Whatever. We want to pray for people. We want to build community. Well, they do that with a women's recovery group. And I got this message. So I shared a few of the pictures. This is a text message I got, but I want to read the text to you. So this is Courtney, Cassie, Katie, Melissa, Alicia, I'm trying to think who else. Oh, Sherry, all in this group. But this is what the text said. It was a true family Thanksgiving night. This was this past Thursday. Stories were told. Every single person shared. We laughed. We had a great time. I wish everyone could experience church like this. Now, another guy I was talking to who shared with his friend and stuff he was doing to help him out. And as I was listening to these stories, I'm like, this is what we're talking about. This is the unforced rhythms of grace Jesus is talking about. Once you learn. So what do? I got a challenge for you guys. Thanksgiving's coming up, right? Some of you in here, maybe you're not with people. I'm going to challenge you this week. Really start praying to where I'm going to share a meal this week with a group. Not by myself, not alone. I'm going to work. I'm going to share a meal with a group of people. That's what Jesus did. But here's the second thing I want you to do. I want you in the middle of all your stress and all your burnout. Listen to me, mammals, for just a second. Okay, all the cook. I get it. It's got to be done. I get it. But I want you to do something really different this year. I want you to remind yourself continuously to just be in the moment. I want to remind you continuously just to enjoy the people God's brought. Family, friends, neighbors, whoever. But just enjoy those. Don't be caught up in what's next. Don't be caught up in all the things you've got to do. Just enjoy each other. And I think in that moment, you're going to get a little glimpse of God looking at Elijah saying, I've always been with you. Chill out. Now, some of you in here, if you worry and stress like I do, here's where we get mad. We're like, I don't like that. I remember I was stressed one day. We're getting ready to pray, I promise. I remember I was stressed one day, and a guy walked up to me. He was like, don't even worry about it. I was like, I'll cut you. I'll cut you right now. I mean, literally. Like, it was the most insult. I was like, it sounded to me like someone just looked at me and said, who cares? Some of you, when you hear, don't worry, you're like, you're just telling me, no. What Jesus said is he flipped it. He said, you don't have, those are all important things. God cares more about that than you do. That's why you get to trust him. Here's Elijah's message. Do what you can do today and trust God with tomorrow. Elijah, what are you freaking out about? Tomorrow. God said, no, I always take care of tomorrow. Matter of fact, newsflash, guys, bad news, some bad news. None of you have ever been in control of tomorrow. Since you were babies, you had no clue. Now you're just more aware of it. You're still not in control of it, though. So it's like, God, I'm going to do what I can do today, and I'm going to trust you with my tomorrow. But I'm not going to run myself in the ground. I'm not going to push people away, and I'm not going to spiral into negativity, because all of those things just feed more and more into stress and burnout. So I pray this week. If you guys join me for a second, let's just pray. God, I pray for people watching online. So thankful for them and reach out to us. Something's going on. But I pray for this room as well. For some of you in this room right now who just be really honest and say, Trent, I am either burnout, close to getting burned out, super stressed, one of the more stressful times of my life. If that's you this morning, if you would, I'd love for you if you would just lift your hand for just a second. I just want to pray for you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. In the back. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Gotcha. God, I pray for so many that are feeling it. So many who are stressed, burnout. I pray today more than anything, if nothing else happens, I pray that from now to this moment forward, that maybe they could just calm down, slow down for just a second, and realize that you've been whispering to them all along. God, you want to refill them. Your love, your grace, your life, your joy, your peace. I pray for that. Pray for a lot of people who are struggling, a lot of people that I know this is going to be the first and maybe the toughest holidays they've had to go through. And just pray we would be reminded, as the song said, your goodness literally runs after us. Even in our darkest moments, you always have a plan. You always make a way. Help us to trust you with that. God, I pray today that for the rest of us, that this week could be different, that we could slow down and see you in so many things, see the people we love in so many things, but if nothing else, just be in the moment like your son was every day. Thank you for that. God, I pray that you give us new life. We thank you for sending your son not only to die on the cross, but coming back to life so that we could have life in him, but even more so that he could live in us, that we could literally be your hands and feet on this earth. Help us to do that this week. Help us to love and live like you. And for all of us who are stressed, God, just remind us today, you're there. You can take care of it. Let us trust you. We ask these things in your name, and amen. Guys, have an amazing week. Hope to see you back for the final week after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care. We'll see you hopefully next week.